if I was an artist, I'd probably be dropping at least every other week.
If you're an artist today with the access that we have, if you're not dropping monthly, I'm kind of confused.
You might think these amazing songs that you love took years to make. And realistically, the singer wrote it in 15 minutes. They didn't like it either.
Is all the way at the top.
I try to stay at the top. What's going down, music entrepreneurs? We are back on the MEC podcast. It's not a dream. Dame is still here. And how are you feeling, Dame? How are you surviving fatherhood so far?
I'm good. Last night was actually more sleep that I've gotten. Probably the most sleep that I've gotten in the past, 4 weeks. But I mean, it's still not a lot. But I'm grateful, and it's worth it. So yeah, I'm good, man. I'm not complaining this morning. Just a lot going on.
And you, Erinn, you don't have a kid, so you
I
probably
don't have
slept.
a kid. Yeah, I mean, I deal with my own issues going to bed, but once I'm asleep, I'm asleep. It's just I'm typically up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Jeez, okay, not me.
Just real quick, shout out to my guy E Brown. I came into the office this morning. Again, we record this really early, so I get into the office around 7:15 to record these every Wednesday. And I realized that I was wearing the same shirt that I was wearing last week. So the homie E Brown had given me a shirt that I keep in my office, and I was able to swap that shirt out. So shout out E Brown. He's a longtime listener of the Music Entrepreneur Club. Super cool cat. He came down here. I think he's from Seattle, if I'm not mistaken, in that region. But he came down to LA one time, and he came by the office and we chopped it up. So the shirt really came in handy. My apologies for just now wearing it. I was supposed to. It just been in my drawer. I don't open this drawer too often. But
I
it came
wonder
in
what else
handy.
is in there.
Shit. What we got?
You got snacks?
Some bags, a microphone, and that's it. I don't got too much stuff in the office. I need to beef it up. I mean, I know that the background looks decent, but yeah, I got a DMX vinyl over there, some microphones.
I thought for a second you meant E Brown was your coworker, and I was like, really? He got a job in distro?
Nah, nah, nah. Nah, he just came down to chop it up. I think he was doing some other stuff while in town, and he dropped by.
Well, if you're an artist like E Brown, and we're going to tie this into the whole distro thing, you can get free premium music distribution for 3 months. Go to tolost.com, use the code MEC, and it'll automatically activate 3 free months. You can upload a lot of music, a lot of beats, a lot of songs, all types of stuff in just 3 months. So try it out. Obviously, no obligation. It's free for 3 months. And you can get your music on every platforms you didn't know existed. So speaking of things we didn't know existed, yes, weekly wins.
You're coming through a little choppy, Pain. I don't know if
Call me NLE then if my audio's all choppy. Do you want to start with your wins, both of you?
One of my wins that I'm excited about is I don't know. I think it's just a win to make it to a new day, and I'm not saying that in a facetious way, but I think that every day that you get to step into a new day with a healthy perspective is a win. But this morning, I think I was up and functional earlier than I typically am, like having conversations and in a meeting, and then had to drive somewhere. It's been a I guess this is what regular people do, right? And so I was following up with a new potential client. And basically it was like, hey, we sent off the proposal a couple days ago. Just wanted to make sure that you saw it. And they were like, hey, we saw it. We're actually finessing the budget to make sure we meet y'all's number. And that is such a win for me because I feel like a lot of times you'll reach out to a client or a potential client, and if they don't have the number that you're looking for, they start to haggle or bargain, or it's like they'll just ghost you. And these people were like, yeah, like and then they followed up with, we need to get started like next week. So we're trying to like figure out next steps to send y'all today. And I was like, thank God. It just was, a good experience. And it was even more refreshing because the reason that it's a win is because it's the highest I've ever quoted a new client. And to the point that my business partner was like, "You're crazy for this." And I was like, "We're not quoting for labor, we're quoting for IP." Like they're asking us to bring our intellectual property and our understanding of a lot of worlds into creating this art project and doing a lot of storytelling around it. And so he was like, "Okay, if you believe it," he was like, "I don't know. That's a wild place." And I wasn't quoting wild, hoping that they would negotiate and come down. I'm quoting like, "This is what I want." Like, point blank, blank, period. And so for them to come back and be like, "Yeah, we're working on the budget right now. We're going to send you back something today." That was a huge win for me just because the number was I won't even say it was like a big faith move for me. It's just where I am mentally. I'm like, I'm not signing on to projects unless they start at a baseline of this. And I'm really excited about the project, but I'd pass if it wasn't worth the money. So that's my win for the week.
What industry is it in? The partner.
Public art.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you really. I mean, some industries might be similar, but like, there's other industries that just the negotiations are different, and just the standards are different. The pay is different. So every once in a while, you should peek outside of the music industry or just entertainment in general, and see how other people do business, and you'll probably learn a lot. It might even be inspired to inch more out of your comfort zone or where you normally do business because it might be less stressful over there. You might make more money over there. Uh, yeah, give it a shot. My win is so it's actually going to happen tomorrow. It's something that I organized. So the next series that Big Ja is working on is called Laugh. It's a West Coast dark comedy. Laugh stands for Life Ain't Usually Great Here. Um, and we're working on the soundtrack already, getting ahead of the music because the music has to bang for this one. It's going to be all West Coast artists. It's going to be a very West Coast project. And I got a lot of the artists pulling up to the Two Lost office tomorrow to just chop it up, network, give them a chance to meet Ja in person, learn a little bit more about the project if they haven't already submitted their song, have some food. So I think it's just going to be a cool experience that I'm able to bring to life because of Two Laws. Two Laws is obviously cool with me bringing artists up here, and then Ja's just a cool cat. So I'm sure it'll go well. So it's a win to set it up, and hopefully the win next week will be that it went really well, and everybody got along, and we're getting some great music out of it. So be on the lookout for Laugh. It should be a dope. It will be something different than what Ja normally does. It'll still be funny, kind of, but there'll be a lot of serious moments too. It'll be like a dark comedy. Um,
That name is super tight, so congrats on that. I feel
yeah.
like that's a win too, because I feel like y'all have named things so creatively, like Blackbusters, the lesbian homie, which is so funny to me because it's a very specific world. But anytime I've ever said it, y'all either have like cult following or people are like, "Oh, that's a really interesting title." So I feel like y'all have titled things so well. So I'm like, that's super tight. Congrats on that.
Yeah, so the laugh actually came from me. I made up the title because it was originally titled L.A. Times. Obviously, we have an L.A. Times paper here. Didn't want to have any conflict or issues with it, um, and I came up with laugh. I pat myself on the back for most names. The Music Entrepreneur Club is probably the least creative name that I've ever come up with, but I typically like the names. I mean, the Music Entrepreneur Club I think has served us well because it is what it is. Like it's very just descriptive. But whether it's collab for the crown, don't fuck up our beats contest, like 1 week notice. I really like the names that I come up with. So yeah, laugh should be dope, and hopefully we can dip more into our merch bag with it because with the lesbian homie, don't nobody really want. There's not really a tagline or a slogan or like a line from the lesbian homie that's popular, and I don't really think people want to walk around with the lesbian homie on their chest. So merch, wasn't that much of an option with that show, even though it's popular. Um, but yeah, I see we got Payne back. Let's see if we got better connection here. Payne, you got your win this week?
My win will be a stable relationship with Riverside. But no, my big win is that I went on vacation and I hadn't done that in a year.
Nice.
And I survived. I survived being on vacation and not working for a couple days.
Where did you go?
I went to a very special area up here that, it's hours away, but it feels like you're in an entirely different region because you're on the lakes, the Great Lakes. So it feels real coastal, but it's just kind of like a little bougie place where you can do rugged shit, but also super bougie stuff as well.
Is it I think I forget what it's called. Damn, what is it called? Because I used to live in Chicago and
Door
there's
County. I'm sure you've been there.
nah, I'll the name will come to me, I'm
Are you
sure.
are you thinking of Wisconsin Dells?
There you go. Boom.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't say that's a. Well, look, it's fun to be at, but it's more like water parks and partying, not really the
Oh,
New England experience in the Midwest. That's what I got.
well, we found a nice resort there that was just like very relaxing, like spa. That's what I remember about it. And where is the Ozarks? Where is that?
That's in the South.
Okay.
I think it depends on what part of the Ozarks. I've been. Um, Dang, I'm trying to think. It's so wild. I was on tour, and I actually, the first time I ever drove a boat was in the Ozarks, but that was in 2013, so I can't even remember. Like, we were on Warp Tour, and they rented them, and it was so wild. Like, the Ozarks are wild. I was in a resort out there, and then the show came out, and I was like, this is interesting. I only watched like one episode of the show, but it's a very interesting place. But yeah, I think it covers like two or three different states, parts of the Ozarks, but I can't
Yeah.
remember where I was.
No,
They have a
you're
lot of
right.
exotic bugs.
Yeah, it crosses the Mason-Dixon line into Missouri and then also touches Oklahoma. That's wild. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just Arkansas. All right.
So,
Okay, so yeah, we were in Arkansas, the part that we were at. Because I was about to say Arkansas, but I'm like, is that considered the South? And then I was like, maybe I don't remember where I was. But yeah, we were in Arkansas.
the Ozarks is a good show. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest watching it. It was I
Is
thought
it scary? Should I watch it?
it's like a drug. It's a drug like show. But it's where they selling drugs, like, but I think he's like an accountant gets caught up like crunching numbers for some cartel or something, and then he eventually has to move to the Ozarks and continue this.
I'll say I vaguely remember the first episode, but I don't really remember. I just remember it was like a white collar kind of dude, and then he was doing. Yeah, I can't remember it, but I don't really watch TV, so
Yeah,
maybe I should check it out.
good show, good show. All right, let's start it off. Where we got Tyler the Creator, Aaron. Fill us in on what's going on with Tyler.
To all you niggas out there that's making music or art, you could just put this shit out. You don't always have to have the big rollout and fucking, blood, sweat, and tears. I spent 30 years on this shit. Because what happens is niggas will design their own handcuffs and lock themselves up and throw a key away. And then that just turns into fear after a while. Then it takes 30 years for niggas to put something out. Then that's why we never got detox. Niggas just being too precious with the shit. And granted, I have done that. I was precious with albums, but now I'm like, sometimes this song's just good. It doesn't always have to be innovative and pushing the next thing. Sometimes you just want to wear a white motherfucking t-shirt, bro.
Yeah, have fun.
But
And
it's just have fun,
but
man.
there's a level of but
To all you
Okay, so that part at the very end, I'm glad we got to the end. I think is so important. He's like, sometimes you just want to wear a white t-shirt. I think him specifically saying that matters because he's known as a fashion icon right now, setting trends, rejuvenating trends and things like that. And he's like, it's just not that deep. Even from a fashionable perspective, sometimes I just want to put on a white t-shirt. And I think that about music. Like, I think about albums like Let God Sort 'Em Out. Like, that to me is like, will probably go down in hip hop history as one of the best albums to ever drop. And that dropping in 2025, people would have told you, oh, that can't happen, right? I think that's a masterpiece and a work of art. And honestly, clearly the work of decades, right? Like Clips haven't dropped since I was in high school, I feel like, as an album, as a duo, unless I missed it. But it's like for them to be able to drop that in the same breath, I'm listening to TikTok rappers drop a minute and a half song that I can't stop listening to. I think if you're too precious with your art, you're going to end up ruining the sanctity of it, which is sometimes just dropping for the sake of dropping. And even for myself, I've been trying to push myself to try new things, to do things without thinking about it in the context of the greater, more vast world. So, like, I just started painting and I'm terrible at it. Terrible, but it's like, what's good and what's bad. In fact, like I'm reorienting part of my life around painting right now. I'm about to record a podcast tonight where I'm painting in the process of it. So I think it's really important for people to not only not be precious with their art, but to not take themselves that seriously. Because I think some of the greatest things that we experience come from when we don't overthink what we're doing and we just focus on the art form itself and flowing through it.
I agree and kind of disagree to some extent. Like, if you're an artist that, that to me, that's like the second best option, just put it out, right? Like, but I would never suggest just throw out the lesbian homie. Like, we benefit so much from having like a build up and just anticipation and like, to me, that's the best case scenario. I mean, with music these days, more promotion happens after the fact. So it's normal for things to bubble after you can figure out. So maybe it's a little different with music, but even with music, I would try to do something to kind of warm up or to build up anticipation or to, try to find a few more folks that might be interested in kind of the build up and the storytelling of it. But if you are the artist that holds on to things and you can't, and there is no, it's not going to come out unless you just put it out, then I agree with Tyler. That's, to me, that's the second best way to do it. And then just focus on the promotion after because like we saw with Payne sent the clip of or the video of the Do or Die song that's now getting traction that came out years and years ago. There's always time to breathe life into a project, but why not have some kind of promo and build up to the release? I don't see any.
I don't think he's saying that, and I'm with you. I think it's the first best thing when you are learning the habit and building the muscle of creating and release, right?
Mhm.
I think y'all have something to protect to a degree to where you need to value your art enough. Like, again, I mentioned Let God Sort 'Em Out and the TikTok rappers I'm listening to. Like, Clips to me had the best rollout that I've seen for a hip hop album. I honestly think this is the best rollout I've seen for an album since either Lemonade or potentially when Drake was putting the billboards in cities. What was that? What was that Black album that he did? I just feel like there's not been a ton of like on a mass scale super innovative releases like for artists that are that big. So I'm not even saying, I'm just saying the value of the art isn't diminished by prolonging or isn't accentuated by prolonging the release. That's all I'm saying. I do think that well thought out rollouts are important. I think it's important to think about your art from a critical standpoint. I just think that a lot of people in an attention economy are looking at rollouts the same way that they would have 10, 15 years ago. And it's like you don't have that luxury to be so precious with your art when somebody's going to forget about it tomorrow if you just don't release.
Yeah. I think it's more important for newer artists to have like a cadence and a story around the cadence of why you chose the cadence that you chose and sticking to that. Right? Like, I think, maybe you drop once a month because XYZ, or you drop every day because X, Y. Like, what's the story around the cadence of releases, and stick to that until you have an audience that would care about like a bigger build up to some like magical piece of art that you create. Because the expectation now is that you have consistent releases, and to me, if you're not dropping at least once a month, um, I don't know what you're doing early. Like if you're an artist earlier, even
That's
artists.
an interesting thought, Dame. I don't know if I've ever heard you say that. I know we talk about consistency, but I kind of agree with that. I feel like if you're an artist today with the access that we have, if you're not dropping monthly, I'm kind of confused. And, the like, even if you have been around for a minute, but if you took any type of hiatus or break, and especially if you don't have any additional interesting content, like if you're solely focused on promoting your music or things around your music, I had an artist that I used to work with, and he's just been promoting the drop of a project for like 3 months. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Do you
Well,
know what I'm saying?
but I would also say you better not just be solely promoting your music.
Correct. But like at this point, you're so far gone if you still think that's what the internet is about, right?
Right.
So then I'm like, why are you just saying coming soon, dropping this, da 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 da? I always have hated announcements about announcements, but then it's just like you promoted, the album dropped, cool. And now there's post promotion, but it's like literally kind of coming out of the same book as the pre promotion. And in my head, I'm like, okay, this album was 14 tracks. You could have just dropped this entire year, and maybe towards the end of the year or a special date you drop a EP, whatever. I just don't understand why anybody would be holding on to tracks that are mixed and mastered right now. It's not that hard to get album artwork. You could just post a picture. Like you could do it on Canva. I don't understand. So like I kind of want to Payne, I want to hear your thought on what Tyler said. But Dame, I also would love to know, like, in your head, why do you feel like dropping monthly is a thing? I think some people are like, well, I got to make the track. And, we've talked about stockpiling tracks. What if you're just kind of getting in your rhythm of making tracks and dropping them? What is the benefit if you don't necessarily have traction yet? And I have a thought, but I kind of want to know y'all's ideas on that.
You said the benefit of consistent releases.
Yeah, like if you're just kind of getting started and you haven't built much traction, or you've already been in the game and this is your first time coming back to releasing
Yeah.
instead of a body of work, why do you think tracks per month?
Yeah. Go ahead, Payne.
Oh, I thought she was asking you. I don't know
Oh,
about.
but she asked you for your thoughts on Tyler first, and since you haven't spoken a minute, wanted to make sure you chimed in.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately what it is more than anything is it's artist perception, and that leads to insecurity. So what I mean is, God, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'll work with an artist who never wants to release a track. I think the track is fine, and they'll just keep saying, there's something missing, missing. It needs to pop, it needs this, it needs that. And it's always these abstractions. It's never, I think the low end mix needs to be clearer. That's something we can do. But when someone says it needs to sound bigger, what does that mean? You just want me to keep adding shit on? It's fine the way it is. Or they'll say, okay, it just needs to sound more classic. Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, how am I supposed to interpret that when I think that the track is fine? And maybe it's not a classic, but you're setting yourself to fail by imposing all of these criteria on it. And these are criteria that you can't control. You can't control whether a track is classic or not. All you can do is make it something you like. That's my opinion. With Tyler, I think what's interesting is, and I'm not an avid Tyler the Creator fan, but people have recently been giving him a lot of credit for creating this timeless music. His latest releases have been amazing and genius. And then here he comes out and says, oh, I've kind of just been putting shit out because I finally got over my apprehensions about creating an imperfect project or releasing an imperfect project. I mean, realistically, Earthquake was a demo that he intended to give to other artists. And when I heard that story, I was like, those other artists wouldn't have sounded good on that track. And it was a demo, which means it was imperfect. The whole purpose of recording a demo is to later change it and clean it up and edit it and everything. And that was kind of a breakout moment for him because he just put the demo out. So how many people, how many artists in the making, 5 years from now are going to be working on their projects with their teams and their producers and asking, why can't this sound classic like that Tyler, the Creator album? And it's just because they like the album. There's nostalgia associated with it. There are all these emotions associated with their experience being a consumer of that project. And they want to somehow bottle up that feeling and sprinkle it on their music. That's not how it works. And so my thing is put the music out because you might think of it. That's why it's a matter of perception. You might think these amazing songs that you love took years to make. And realistically, the singer wrote it in 15 minutes. They threw it together. They didn't like it either. Or, maybe they didn't like it and they changed it. But the fact of the matter is, I think the majority of the music that we love was not created through this painstakingly complicated way, this obsessive attention to detail. Some maybe, but I also think when artists go on these interviews and talk about how much they invested and how much blood, sweat, and tears and this and that, I think it's a lot of storytelling. I think it's a lot of, you know what I mean? It's a lot of embellishment. Because those of us who see how songs get created, a lot of times it's just people coming up with ideas and they just happen. Like Quincy Jones, rest in peace, said melodies come from God. Or something to that effect. I feel like songs, I mean, as a metaphor, it's just like the music that we love, we can't explain its origin. It just happens. It's something in the air. It's the energy between the people. It's who the hell knows? And a lot of great artists will explain that they don't know where a lot of that stuff comes from. So I think we try to bottle up perfection and create classics, but we cannot control the impact of our music on listeners. All we can do is be authentic and enjoy it. And if we're sitting here being perfectionists, then as Tyler said, we're putting handcuffs on ourselves and no one wins. No one, because our music never comes out and we're sitting here trying to perfect it forever. And we're not happy because we're caught in this cycle of seeking something that doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist and we will never be satisfied. But the second you get in the habit, and again, like what Dame was saying, or I guess Erinn was saying it too, the muscle memory of releasing music. If you're not releasing music consistently, you're always going to be afraid of it. If you're standing at the edge of a cliff waiting to dive in, you will always be afraid of the descent. But if you jump and you climb back up the cliff, it's easy the second time. That's how it is with releasing projects.
Not if you jump and fuck your shit up.
Well, even then you figure out what you did wrong. But yeah, it hurts more that way.
Paratroopers, their second day of jumping, I think it's like you have to complete like 20 jumps in a day. And then your final week of training, I think you have to complete like 100 jumps that week. And it's just so that the muscle memory develops, but like, because you're jumping out of a plane, your second, third, fourth time, you're still going to freak out. So they're just like, that's cool. We're just going to do this every 20 minutes on the hour until lunchtime. Then you're going to go take your lunch. We're going to do some training and then you're going to jump some more. And it's just like the catch and release. That's what I think I like about it. My dad used to be a paratrooper and he told me about the way that the training went. He's like, you do your first jump and then the next day you're just jump, 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 jump. And I think more people got to do that.
Yeah. And so when I was interviewing artists on the Independent Living podcast, I think I've said this before, like I always ask them about their top track, and their top track typically has like 40 million streams, 50 million streams. and it's always the track that they didn't think would do anything, right? So that's another reason for you to just put stuff out, is you never know who's going to gravitate towards it. Because there was no special promo. I think I asked it to Coda the Friend. He has a bunch of songs in the tens of millions of streams. Like, it's always stuff that, maybe a friend convinced them to drop, or, it was just a trial, whatever it is. But anyway, Erinn, going back to why at least once a month to me is like, if I was an artist, I'd probably be dropping at least every other week, right? It's to build the muscle, just what you guys are talking about. Two, it's great for the Spotify algorithm for your profile to be active and to receive constant drops. Three, for pitching, like even if your song doesn't get playlisted, it's good for them to kind of see the story build over time, right? And if you're dropping twice a year, they probably forgot about the last time you pitched your music, so they don't even know how the story's building. So this shouldn't even be a discuss. Like, if you love to make music, I don't see why you wouldn't want to drop at least once a month. Like, I love to hoop. Like, I wish I could hoop every day. Like, if you really love music, like, why aren't you making music every day that you want to release? Like, it doesn't even make any sense to me. And I wouldn't even have this conversation past 3 minutes with an artist that I was potentially working with that would tell me, like, yeah, I'm going to drop once a quarter or every other month. I'll be like, all right, cool, you do that, but do that away from me. I'm not dealing with you. Like, it's not
What about artists who are like busy, so to speak?
busy doing
'Cause-
what?
no, but like I'm not talking about like necessarily new young artists, because I think about somebody that you were about to potentially work with who I think is dope, but he's like making so much music for other people, so he rarely ever drops. What do you feel like
That's
in
different.
those
I
situations?
mean, if your business is diverse and it doesn't depend on you making money from your music, and you're just as content like building the business other way, then okay, then make music at your own pace. But I'm talking about the folks that really want to do this, and this is their sole business. Like, he enjoys. I think I know what you're talking about. Like, he enjoys like scoring films, and he enjoys that stuff just as much. So it's not really procrastinate. Some excuses here and there for sure, but
I wasn't even saying he was procrastinating.
but
I was just wondering, like, do you feel that for every artist? But you're saying for artists who are trying to step into
yeah,
making this full time, or who are already full time, who are just, and I'm with that because I
but
know artists who are full time with it, and it's like, bro, what? Like, this is all you do. Like, I'm confused why you're not dropping more frequently,
yeah.
especially people who are in deals that it could be way more lucrative for them to drop more frequently.
Yeah, yeah. Some are, I don't, I don't try to understand artists anymore. I just kind of shake my head and walk away and be like, oh, I don't got time to waste with people. Like, if we're having this conversation, like, I don't have the patience for it. Find somebody younger to go back and forth with about how often you're gonna release music, because I already know this is not the era of music where you can release music once a quarter and expect any kind of traction. So unless you're the most amazing artist ever, and every time you drop, the world stops. But I don't know anybody like that. All right, so we go into Mauricio Ruiz's post about artists and managers. It's kind of a long post. Let me try to read it fast. The post says, "Who really drives success, the artist or the manager?" This is Mauricio Ruiz, creator of the Manager's Playbook. And then in the caption, he goes, "Now that I've caught your attention with the quote, some in the business won't read past it, and that in and of itself is telling. Let me break this down for you. If you're reading this and you thought even for a second the manager is driving success, you're not thinking straight. A manager can guide, advise, strategize. However, none of it matters without an artist who is undeniable and puts in the work. A real artist, emphasis on real, is the engine that makes the vehicle move. Without them, there's no song, no stage, no shows, no music, no product, no nothing. Without their vision, voice, and work ethic, what is there to guide? Great managers amplify greatness. They don't manufacture it from thin air. They can't actually industry plant the artist to success. That's not a real thing. Think Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson. Phil may have come up with the triangle offense, with Tex Winter, but they didn't put the ball in the net nor have the 48-inch vertical Black Jesus did. So, if you're an artist manager thinking you're the main driver of success, shift your mindset. You're not a miracle worker, but you're a second in command, and that's okay. Your job is still incredibly significant and important. Your job is to elevate, not overshadow. Having this perspective will sharpen your decision making. It reminds you that your role is infinitely tied to servicing your artist. And if you're an artist waiting for your manager to do everything for you, get up off your ass and get to it. We're only as great as you are. Yikes.
That last statement even is like I could go line for line, but even that very last statement is crazy. I feel like me and you are proof of this not being true. And some of it I agree with, but I'm gonna let you share. But that the very last line. I thought it was at least gonna end docilely. The very last line is a hot take to me because that's crazy.
You guys want me to start? One, I don't like the post. I don't like posts that pit each other, artists. We talked about this before. Artist, producer, artist, manager. I hate that. I don't like the post because now we're debating on who's more important, right? And I also think that there's a big difference between like artists that have the trajectory or could potentially be like legend status, and then like independent artists that can build a sustainable, profitable business. Because in order to be like Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Drake, to me, this is my opinion, there's a huge it factor. Like that's reserved for a very small percentage of people. And if you have one of those artists, then that's more lightning in a bottle, and it obviously outweighs whatever the manager can do, right? But there are a lot of artists in the independent space where, let's just say they're making 50,000, 100,000 a year, where I could see a quality manager coming in, and then now within a year or two time, now you're making 300,000, 400,000, right? So who drove that success? If an artist was making 50,000, 75,000 for a few years, boom, you meet somebody, now they're plugging, playing, strategizing, creating idea. Cause I don't think he's given managers enough credit, or maybe that's the type of manager he is or was, right? Cause it says guide, advise, strategize. Like I create. Like I'm also a manager that creates. So you're gonna have to add create onto there because I feel like I'm a creator as well. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like I'm the one that came up with the name for Ja. And I would never take credit for Ja's talent. Like Ja is a to me, he's a lightning in a bottle talent. Like now that I'm learning like television and film and kind of like the importance of direction and the eye of direction and things like that, I recognize like how rare Ja is. But still, that doesn't take away that in addition to strategizing, advising, network, all that stuff, like I am a creator as well. So I feel like I complement differently to an artist that's willing to partner with me. But I'll stop there. But I don't like that he put this out there, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation because I think he's downplaying some managers.
You know what, though? I feel like managers downplay their roles and put a lot of the onus on the artist simply because they don't want to advertise or make public the fact that they are creators, just because that will possibly attract the wrong kinds of artists. In the sense that, when you're a manager and you're just handling business, you're just handling business. There are plenty of managers that do that and they're great at it and they're valuable. But when you're a manager who creates, and that's why I can't manage anymore, because I also have that same impulse, Dame. When you're a manager who creates, you're ultimately doing as much work as the artist is. And that puts you in a really vulnerable position, because if you're a manager who just manages, you just handles logistics, that kind of thing, you can run a boutique management service, have 10 artists, and you're only making 20% off each one, but that 20% can add up. That could be $10,000 a year. But if you're a manager who creates, you have no choice but to go all in with the artist. And that's what I've done with artists. Even groups that I was just the producer in, I took on a managerial role because I had more discipline than them. I had more desire to win than them. I had more desire to learn than them. They just wanted to make music. And that is what's the word? It's not a symbiotic relationship. It's a parasitic relationship. I know that sounds meaner than maybe I intend it to sound, but a lot of people have these parasitic relationships where, for me as the person who's a creator, a co-creator, a co-writer of the music, but then also a creator of all of the visual branding and the non-visual branding, the content strategy, logistics, putting things together, handling bookings, stuff that a manager should be doing or several managers should be doing, then that's me doing 80% of it for not 80% of a share. I'm sharing everything evenly because I'm not seen as management. Or when I was seen as management, managers don't get 50%. So how am I handling tours and album art and coordinating merchandising and handling production as well as features and legal stuff and getting influencer deals and this and that and getting 20% at the most? So I think when managers come out and say things like, don't call me until you have something to manage, it comes from a place of self-protection because they know if they say, hey, I want to insert myself into your situation and create a brand for you because you have so much talent, but my talent is in creating and look what I can create for you, then that artist is going to think, oh, wow, so I don't have to do shit. My manager is not only going to manage me, but he's going to create for me. He's going to create what I need because that's all I hear when someone reaches out to me stupidly, because don't reach out to me asking me to manage you, but people will still reach out. I think we all say, please don't reach out. We will not manage you. I don't have the capacity to manage myself as it is. I damn sure can't and don't want to manage a random artist that I've never met, but I'll get a random text from someone or a DM saying, please, I need someone to manage me and take me to the next level and make me big and all. And it's like, do you hear yourself? You want me to do what for you? Huh? That is not appealing at all. That's like me walking up to a woman being like, oh, you're so beautiful. Can you please date me and make me a better man and help me get better employment? And can I live with you? And can you please show me how to be a worthy partner? Can you help me through all of my anger problems? Can you help me, deal with all my BMs? Like, that's the least appealing proposition you can give anybody.
So people don't take things the wrong way. When I say I create, I don't create the music, right? But there's there's artists that hit me up. Typically when you've plateaued or slowed down, like you need a different way to tell your story, right? And that's the content creation that we can ideate. Okay, how do we make this more interesting? How do we deliver your messaging in a different way? I have these conversations with artists all the time. And even if you look at Funk Volume, like I'm the one that came up with the idea to do our documentary. I'm the one that came up with the idea to do the Don't Fuck Up Our Beats contest. Anything that you saw Funk Volume that wasn't the music, that came from me. So I would never take credit for any music. I do have an interest in writing this music show with Ja. I definitely want to do a show around an independent artist.
Yo, let me be in it, Dame. Please. I'll be a secretary. Please let me be in it. I can help write it too. Let me be in it.
I have a what I think is a great idea. I'm gonna shut up before somebody steals my idea, but I do have. I'm getting the itch to and what's dope is like there's so much respect between me and Ja. It's not like you're the business guy, stay out of this. Like he definitely loves we to just bounce ideas off each other, and he hears me out. There's just a mutual respect there. So. So yeah, I just want to make sure people know I'm not taking claim for the music, but you can't hear that, you're constantly hearing that the music is the least important piece these days. And then, so I'm helping with that other stuff that's helping your brand elevate, right? So yeah, go ahead, Aaron. My bad.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, just for that context, because if you're not in this world, you won't really understand the benefit of somebody who is like the three of us. And I'll agree. I know plenty of managers who are not necessarily like amplifiers and magnifiers. Some are just managing, or they can help negotiate well. And that's why I had to get out of management. I'm like, this is just one of the modalities that I thrive in because I'm a good storyteller. And as a great storyteller who can also maneuver with personalities, you'll get pigeonholed, and they'll be like, oh, you're an incredible manager, you should do this forever. Same like with you, Dave. It's like you got out of management and you're thriving. Granted, you're still managing creators. And then even with me, the project that I talked about with my wins, I'm about to be managing the stories of multiple artists who are doing all of this public art. And then I'm managing the shooters in the process, the way that the data is flowing. But they want me to tell the story in numbers and in visuals in order to articulate how beneficial this project is, right? So it's like, for them to see that from a resume full of mostly music business stuff tells me that it's not just about music. But when I was in music, I just thought, oh, I'm a good manager because I care. When I started managing higher profile artists, and they would come and be like, I don't know, I'm not super creative like most artists. I had one artist tell me this. The biggest artist I ever managed, it was short lived. We did it for just under a year, lost a ton of money. He ghosted us, a whole thing, but made him so much money, more than he's ever made in a single year. So the artist came and said, I'm not super creative like other artists. I don't know how people just come up with ideas like X, Y, and Z. And I looked at him and I said, do you know most artists aren't creative like that? The best of the best typically are really good at making music, and they may have some sort of specific angle that they follow with their story, but they need that team, whether it's a creative director or a manager or a cinematographer, that is pulling out so many more elements from them. Like if you think about Kendrick Lamar and with PG Lang and Dave Free. Like Dave is his creative director that's helped him tell incredible visual stories, and he's helped him weave together his tour stories. Like there's so many things about Kendrick Lamar, even album covers that we love, that's like a Dave Free thing. Even him as a lyricist, a lot of the lyrics that he has, I'm not taking away from Kendrick because I think he's amazing, but they're motifs and different art forms that Dave Free has introduced him to. And it's like Kendrick would not be Kendrick without Dave Free, his creative director. You know, I think about Henny, who manages Smino and Masego. Both of them completely different types of artists. Masego's doing the saxophone and like really doing things there. Smino to me is like my favorite rapper of the modern era. I think he's insane. But the way that Henny has guided their careers and helped them create worlds around what they're doing, again, looks very differently. I think about Ty Basden, who's Brent Faiyaz's manager. Brent Faiyaz respectfully would just be a huge SoundCloud artist. He would have had Sonder. He probably would have done decently as an R&B star, but Ty was like, if you hear Ty's formation story and the way that he rallied people around Brent, and the way that they did touring and the world he's building, the way that they recorded albums, a lot of that has to do with extremely creative managers. So I think that this takes away from a lot of the people that we see, especially in independent music, that we're emulating our ideals around. Like, even with the Russ, like, I think he is very much somebody who's just stand out. He's very unique. He had opportunities that other people didn't also have, but he's just like the one in a million stroke of genius. I think people take a Russ situation and they're like, he didn't need a manager. I don't need a manager. I can figure this out. And then they try to make it this statement. But I think about people like Joyner Lucas. I think Joyner Lucas, respect to his manager, this is no disrespect to him, I think Joyner Lucas would be way further and way more likable if he had a manager who could co-create with him. But you can see with his personality, that just doesn't work with him. Do you know what I'm saying? I think about Futuristic. He's somebody who's an incredible world builder. If he would let people co-create with him, I think he would do really well. I bring this back down to me. I look at the artists that I used to work with. I'm looking at announcements of things that I created for them 3 and 4 years ago. Like, if it's y'all, then why is there nothing fresh and new? You know what I'm saying? I'm innovating in technology right now. Like, I moved to Austin because I'm doing so well in tech, and I started 18 months ago, 19 months ago in that. And now I'm moving into public art. I started with this 6 months ago. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, because I'm an avid, incredible storyteller who's just developing my art, I'm a creator like Dame. So it's like, for me to be hearing this and to listen to it, I don't want to pit artists against managers because I think that's folly. I think it's foolishness. I think we need to look at the type of creators that are working together and what type of ecosystems work really well together. I've seen so many podcasts start and go, including my own. I've started multiple podcasts. How many people have been sitting doing this for this long? Like, I have hundreds of episodes with y'all, and y'all have hundreds of episodes before that. That to me speaks to synergy, that speaks to chemistry, speaks to forethought, that speaks to thoughtfulness. I think there's places that we could go with this to take it up further for sure. But even just maintaining something and building on wins, small and just keeping things going is such a hard feat. To diminish a manager to just being an amplifier of a potentially good thing, I think is super far understanding, stating the benefit of even just somebody who's consistent. But add a creative to that. This is again respect. Like, and this is not an asshole statement for me to say, but like, I have yet to see an artist that I left excel beyond the ideas that I brought them. If it's just about the music, and this is like extreme respect. I'm not trying to take away from people who are building their careers off of music, but if you start looking at world building, if you start looking at streams of revenue, if you start looking at, like, none of those people have filtered into my world since then. I unfollowed them. I don't see them. Do you know what I'm saying? I saw one post the other day from a friend of a whose significant other got booked for something that I came up with 4 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, y'all are still doing that. Okay, dope. Shout out to that. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's just at a basic scale. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking about all the people that I've previously worked with, from the rock bands that I had touring on Warped Tour and overseas, from the labels that I started with artists, from the festivals that I've started. All the intellectual property has somehow ebbed and flowed with me and then gotten smaller. And it's just this little, it's cool. Like, but same with Dame, with Funk Volume. If you look at all the individual camps of those artists, it's way smaller. They're trying to revive or keep alive ideas that were started decades ago that Dame brought to the table. So I just don't like the way that it's positioned. I agree as us versus them, but I also hate that it's discounting how impactful an incredible collaborator is, which I think is what a really great manager is, versus somebody who just actually traditionally manages something and is helping to make sure that things stay in line.
Yeah. And that's why I think our podcast is important because, again, it's no one size fits all answer to everything. You might have a manager that's more in line with how Mauricio like views management, and that makes sense, right? But typically the relationships can be different. Like it says second in, like I know that ultimately like whatever Ja wants is gonna fly, but like there are definitely scenarios, a lot of scenarios where again the trust is built. He knows what I bring to the table, and I'm the one driving the conversation in most of these meetings, right? Because that's the role that I play. We have a good understanding of what I do best. He has a good understanding of what he does best, and there's mutual respect. And that's the best place to be, in my opinion. So yeah, maybe I'll ask him to come on and have this conversation with us. But as I just want more artists to win at the end of it. I want more managers to win. I want more artists to win. I see just as few like quality managers ready to assume these positions as I see artists that are ready to go to that next. Like they're just as scarce in my opinion. So yeah, but I know we got to get to our last topic. So, Payne, take the floor. You can have all the rest of the time if you need it, unless you need me to weigh in.
Well, have either of you heard about the latest situation with Travis Scott and his track "Kick Out"? It's off the Jack Boys album. I'm learning a lot about Travis Scott. This is just a interview, or not an interview. This is a video that came up on my feed. It's Fantana, who I just found out this week is being called out for problematic content. Didn't know that before I watched this. I just want to play a little bit of this just to frame the conversation.
Ripping off this band's sound. But since Travis and his producers didn't go through the trouble of creating this instrumental completely from scratch, the least they could do is give credit to the group of musicians who actually did do that labor and come up with the beat, come up with the vocal part, come up with the bass line that must have caught one of their ears enough for them to think, oh yeah, that's a cool loop, let's grab that and put it in this song and then bury it under a bunch of other shit. If you are going to use that shortcut to get from point A to point B, the least you could do is credit the goddamn band, give them.
So at first, what just always bothers me about these conversations is people focus on crediting the band or credit. It's like credit doesn't put money in anyone's pocket, and that's just not how sample clearance works. And you hear a lot of producers reaching out or posting. Well, all you have to do when you sample someone is just give them the credit, and people will contact me and be like, well, hey, can I use your beat if I give you credit, or if I sample something, can I use it? I just have to give the artist credit, right? It's like, no, that's not how that works. However, I'm starting to back off of this hardline anti-credit conversation. It's just when the conversation about sample clearance, something that's so misunderstood within the music business ends up in the pop culture world, and there are articles about it in CBS and Rolling Stone, it ceases to be a technical legal conversation, and it's all about feelings and vibes, how everything is nowadays, where people are like, oh, just give them credit. Like, you don't understand how the music business works. You don't understand IP law. So I have to just come to terms with the fact that these mainstream publications are never going to engage with the content at a high level. But here we are. It's a Chicago band by the name of Pixel Grip. And they found that their song, what is the name of the song? Pursuit, sampled for the new Jack Boys album. And, there's a lot to unpack there. It feels like everyone's focusing on Travis Scott, and they're always saying, okay, Travis Scott should have cleared it. Travis should have done this. Travis should have done that. You always hear it in terms of what the artist should have done, when in reality, one, yes, Travis Scott is a producer. He didn't produce on this beat. Travis Scott may not even know there was a sample on this track. The producers who made the beat, and I know a couple of them, the one that's most vocal and involved in this and has actually gotten involved in some of these articles is Sean Momberger, who's obviously huge. He co-produced Not Like Us. He's produced a lot of huge records. Realistically, it's three of the biggest producers in the industry right now, at least in the rap world, who worked on this track. They know what they're doing. I'd bet money they handled it correctly and disclosed all this sample information to the label. But the label dropped the song anyway. Either it was due to negligence, either it was because they simply just operate under the ask for forgiveness, not permission method, which I think the vast majority of labels do. And when it comes to finding patterns, especially with Travis Scott's label, that's the wrong one. We've seen this before with even his last album. We covered this from Billboard. Producers are struggling to get paid. even some who work with Travis Scott, and they're talking about producers who worked on the Utopia album still haven't gotten paid, and it says it's increasingly common. Yeah, it's common. It's across the board with all labels. I know sometimes that's due to the artist just not sitting down and signing off on stuff. If that's the case, that system needs to change. But ultimately, it's the labels paying producers, and I feel like the labels and the people who are behind the artists don't get enough heat for that. It's always the artist. Like, there's a photo of Travis Scott. I think that the fact that Travis runs the Jack Boys label complicates things. You know what I mean? Because he is involved on an executive level. But realistically, who A&R this Jack Boys album? It wasn't Travis Scott. Sorry, I keep saying Jack Boys label. I mean Cactus Jack. Who from Cactus Jack worked directly on this project? Obviously, Travis Scott is not the guy that's doing all the logistics and the legal. That wouldn't make any sense. So whose actual fault is this? You know, because when I and every other producer submits a sample-based beat to a label, or even a beat that doesn't have a sample, they're going to ask, is there a sample? And then if you say yes, then you have to send a sample clearance form. If you say no, they're still going to look into it. I mean, Cactus Jack is under Epic, which is interesting because Travis Scott's debut album, which contained the single Antidote, which had a sample in it, was also released through Epic. And way back, I miss these days when my interviews would go viral. I interviewed the producers behind that track, and what they said was the same thing happened. The label dropped the track before the sample clearance was finalized. So I think this is just what's happening. They're asking for forgiveness and not permission. And I know, Erinn, you're a fan of Sean Momberger, right?
I think everybody is, even if they don't know it.
Fair. So Momberger actually weighed in on this, or he reached out, because I think what happened was, you know, like last week's episode, we were talking about the gentleman who claimed that his beat was stolen by Ella May's team. And, you know, I know you were critical of him going to social media about that. Pixel Grip is going to social media about this. And I think it at least helped start the dialogue. So Momberger reached out.
It makes more sense for them, though, because it's the beginning of these proceedings. This is fresh. I think that dude was weird because it's like so many years later.
And that's also helpful because it is. So one thing that wasn't great about that guy is when he issued his statement on TikTok, he said he had heard this years ago, which weakens his claim with regard to the statute of limitations. Pixel Grip is on it. So Sean Momberger he reached out and said the song wasn't cleared prior to release. Of course, that's exactly what's happening. I mean, it's not just samples that need to get cleared. It's features, it's beats, it's everything. And the majority of that stuff doesn't get cleared until months after the label releases it. So he said that the labels should have contacted them. You know, hey, the label should be reaching out to clear the sample soon because that's the label's responsibility. But what they're saying is it would have meant the world if he had just tagged us or shouted us out in any way. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I think
They might have missed what he was saying, though. When he said that, oh, the label didn't clear it, he's saying, I haven't gotten paid yet. They didn't even let me know for sure that it was going to make it on the album. He's making a very, that's his PC way of being like, I don't have nothing to do with this. The label is BSing right now, and that's what happened. But he's essentially saying, I haven't gotten paid for it. We haven't even seen split sheets yet. So like, I get why y'all are upset, but like the label hasn't cleared it. He's basically washing his hands without trying to upset his constituents, especially because he probably wants to collab again, and he knows it's going to be a bigger paycheck the more fanfare that's here, but he doesn't want to be the person. He doesn't want these people to be pissed and think he's screwing them over. He doesn't want the label to get upset at him to where he can't collaborate, or even Travis Scott, whatever. He's trying to keep his hands clean, but acknowledge what's going on. I just think if you don't know the game, like, again, I know somebody who
and they don't. I don't think they know the game.
Yeah, I know somebody who got paid for their production of a Wayne track after he got his platinum plaque. If y'all don't know, it's got to be certified platinum. Then you have to order the joint from Jewel Box. Then you got to wait 9 to 12 months to get it back. He got paid after that. So the joint went platinum like 3, 4 years after he made the beat and it was released. So I think that's just them not knowing the game.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like this at all. I mean, ultimately, this is just the world that the music business entities, the corporate entities, the lawyers, etc. This is the world they created. It's not the world that a producer created. It's not the world that a rapper created. I do think, given the fact that, Pixel Grip is a relatively smaller group, and maybe credit would help, but obviously that's not what's going to propel them past where they need to be. There's not even really a peak with all the publicity they're getting for this. There's not really a peak in streams.
And they don't need to be saying shout them out. If I was their manager, I'd be like, stop talking. We
Yeah.
getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, there's that too. Maybe they don't have management, but ultimately they're small enough where if I had been involved in this as a producer, I probably would have just reached out and been like, hey, I'm just going to be real with you behind the scenes. The labels are pissing me off. I had this happen where I reached out to a producer who used one of my loops for a track, and I didn't even know about it because he never told me. And I think whatever, he just was trying to slip by or crawl beneath the radar, or he was just waiting for the label to handle the business. But when I reached out to him, he was like, look, man, I haven't gotten paid either. I haven't seen the split sheet. What do you want me to do about it? I'm like, I don't want you to do anything about it other than you tell me who is handling things. And he told me who was handling things. I reached out to them. They got back to me right away. And they're like, what do you want? Because granted, they knew the producer was already privy to all the information and he was hands off. Me, I had my intellectual property rights infringed upon. And so I have now a legal issue that I'm bringing up. It's not me saying, hey, can I get paid, please? And they're like, yeah. It's me saying, hey, there's a legal problem here. We got to handle it. And so they were on it. If you're sampling a group this small, it would be dope to just, rather than view it as sample clearance, present it as a collaboration. I mean, I think you would actually, it might make the labels happier because then the labels don't have to pay a clearance fee. They'll just put Jack Boys featuring Pixel Grip. You know what I mean? And then everyone wins because I'm sure Pixel Grip won't ask for a clearance fee. They'll just say, oh, we just want to split and credit because we think whether or not that's more helpful to them remains to be seen. It's probably not. Maybe it is. I don't know. If it is, great. They can take it and capitalize on it. But yeah, I mean, that's always, as a sample maker, I would rather be looked at as a co-writer than someone that got sampled. But that's just because
That's
that's the
actually a
natural
really
step.
cool thought. I wonder if that's happened to more bands than we realize. Because I think about a couple of features that I really love, and you can tell like the band made the track, and maybe a rapper like really liked it, or they made part of a track. Like I think about Cruza is my favorite band currently, and they have a track with Smino. That's how I got introduced to Cruza, and it's like it's a wavy ass Cruza sounding track, but it almost sounds like Smino heard their track and wanted it, and then he just featured them like you said, instead of crediting them as producers or like sampling, you know what I'm saying? I think about a lot of songs like that now that I'm like, whoa, I wonder if that would have been a better situation for them just to be featured, because now it gives them the I don't know, that's super tight. This is unfortunate. I'm not clapping for the way that the industry flows because I don't want people to hear that like, oh, that's just the game. It sucks. It shouldn't be this way. But I'm hoping that this could illuminate more ways to collaborate, and I'm hoping they get their money and their credit and it benefits them in a lot of ways.
Yeah, me too. And I'm just not willing to blame anybody but the people under whose purview sample clearance objectively falls. And it doesn't fall under, Sean Momberger's purview or Travis's purview necessarily. Who really needs to handle this? And I don't think Pixel Grip is doing anything wrong necessarily. I don't think anyone in this situation other than the system is doing anything wrong, and it's frustrating. But that being said, speaking of systems, we all need to create systems for ourselves as artists. That's really how we propel our careers forward. And a big part of that system is, we just looked at the Spotify stats of Pixel Grip, getting your music out there on all the streaming platforms. And you can do that for free for 3 months. Go to tolost.com, use the code MEC, get yourself sampled by a famous rapper, and get some publicity, and hopefully your streams go up and you get some money off of it. Anything else you want to add before we end?
Nope.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in for another episode. Continue to send your thoughts and prayers to Dame for increased sleep every single night, and we'll catch you next week on MEC. Peace.